May 18th, 2018, first period at Santa Fe High School in Santa Fe, Texas, a small coastal community about 30 miles southeast of Houston, was already underway when 17-year-old Dimitrios Pagortzis walked into the building with a shotgun and a .38 caliber revolver concealed beneath his trench coat. He moved to the art hallway. He fired through the glass pane set into the classroom door first. Students on the other side rushed to block the door from the inside. He fired again through the wooden part of the door and hit a student in the chest, a fatal wound. He then spent approximately 30 minutes working through a warren of 4 interconnected art rooms, killing 8 more students and 2 teachers before school resource officers engaged him, isolated him to a single classroom, and talked him into surrendering. By the time it was over, 10 people were dead and 13 more had been wounded. He was 17 years old. He was taken into custody alive. He had planned it that way. Dimitrios Pagortzis. At the surface level, the profile the public received in the immediate aftermath was this: a quiet, 17-year-old junior at the school, the son of a Greek immigrant father named Antonios, who had come to the United States from the village of Magolista in Karditsa, Greece, a member of the dance team at the Assumption of the Virgin Mary Greek Orthodox Church in Galveston. Photos from the church's own Facebook page showed Dimitrios dancing in costume at a Greek festival, smiling. He had played defensive tackle on the school's freshman and junior varsity football teams. He had no prior criminal record. His friends described him as quiet. When Governor Greg Abbott stood at a press conference the afternoon of the shooting and said there were no red flags to indicate Pagortzis was headed for trouble, he was, in some technical sense, describing the absence of a criminal history. What he was not describing, and what the deeper record reveals, is a considerably different picture. The 10. The people killed at Santa Fe High School on May 18th, 2018 were 8 students and 2 teachers. The students were Christian Riley Garcia, 15, Shauna Fisher, 16, Sabika Sheik, 17, Christopher Jake Stone, 17, Aaron Kyle McLeod, 15, Angelique Ramirez, 15, Jared Conard Black, 17, and Kimberly Vaughn, 14. The teachers were Cynthia Tisdale, 63, and Ann Perkins, both substitute teachers. Each of those names carries a full life, a family, and a story that this video cannot do complete justice to. But a few of those stories need to be told in more detail, because they say something important about what actually happened inside that building. We'll get to them. John Barnes. The school resource officer who first engaged Pagortzis that morning was a Santa Fe Independent School District police officer named John Barnes. When Barnes arrived at the art hallway and confronted the shooter, he took a shotgun blast, a load of buckshot to the arm that caused massive blood loss. According to the Galveston County Sheriff, as Barnes was being treated for a wound that nearly killed him, he was still directing his colleagues toward the scene, urging them to keep moving to get to the students. Barnes and a second responding officer isolated Pagortzis to a single classroom. Every student in the rest of that building who walked out alive walked out in part because John Barnes ran toward the sound of a shotgun and kept giving orders after it hit him. The trench coat. Dimitrios Pagortzis wore a long black trench coat to school almost every single day. This is not a detail reported after the fact. It was something his peers had commented on and noticed for months. The coat was decorated with pins and patches, a German iron cross, a Soviet hammer and sickle, a rising sun, the Imperial Japanese military symbol, and a Baphomet image associated with satanic iconography. 3 weeks before the shooting, on April 30th, Pagortzis posted a photograph of the coat to his Facebook page. The caption he wrote for it is not something a reasonable person could read as casual or ironic. He explained each symbol in his own words: hammer and sickle, Archer rebellion. Rising sun, kamikaze tactics. Iron cross, Archer bravery. He had built a personal iconographic system. He had assigned each symbol a meaning. He had publicized it. And then he wore the coat to school the next morning. And the morning after that, right up to May 18th. Born to kill. On the same Facebook page, in the same post on April 30th, 18 days before the shooting, Pagortzis also shared an image of a custom T-shirt. Printed on the front of it, in white letters, were the words, "Born to Kill." He captioned the image, "Custom T-shirt." He was wearing that shirt under the trench coat on the morning of the shooting. His Facebook page was deleted by the platform the same day the shooting happened. Governor Abbott referenced the shirt specifically at his press conference, describing Pagortzis as a young man obsessed with violence. What Abbott did not address at that press conference is why those public posts, the symbols. The shirt, the captions, did not constitute a red flag that anyone acted on. The arsenal. Pagortzis carried two weapons into the school, the Remington 870 shotgun and the .38 caliber revolver, both taken from his father's collection. The shotgun had a potentially shortened barrel, the legality of which was being investigated. But the guns were only part of what investigators found that day. In the vehicle Pagortzis had parked near the school and in areas adjacent to the building, law enforcement discovered additional devices he had built himself: pipe bombs, a pressure cooker bomb, and Molotov cocktails. None of the explosive devices detonated. Had any of them functioned as intended, the casualty count from May 18, 2018 would look very different than it does. His plan involved considerably more than a shotgun and a revolver. The devices simply failed. Shauna Fisher. Among the 10 people killed at Santa Fe High School, 16-year-old Shauna Fisher had a particular significance to the timeline of this case. Over a period of roughly 4 months leading up to the shooting, Pagortzis had repeatedly made romantic advances toward Shauna. She turned him down each time. According to her mother, Sadie Rodriguez, his behavior escalated as the rejections continued. He became more aggressive, more persistent, more difficult to ignore. Then, in the days before the shooting, Shauna Fisher rejected him publicly in front of classmates. Her mother told the Associated Press that she believed this public humiliation was the specific trigger for what followed. Shauna Fisher was killed in the art classroom on the morning of May 18th. She was one of the first to die. Her mother has spent years since that morning carrying both her grief and the knowledge of what preceded it. Sabika Sheikh. Among the 10 killed, 17-year-old Sabika Sheikh was the only one who had not come to Santa Fe High School through any ordinary path. She was a Pakistani exchange student from Karachi, placed at the school through the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Abroad program, a U.S. State Department initiative created in the aftermath of September 11th specifically to bring students from Muslim-majority nations to American schools as cultural ambassadors. Sabika had arrived in August 2017. She had been in Santa Fe for almost 10 months. She was supposed to leave on June 10th, 3 weeks after the shooting, to return home to her family for Eid al-Fitr, the holiday marking the end of Ramadan. Her parents were breaking the Ramadan fast when word of the shooting reached them in Karachi. Her father, Abdul Aziz Sheikh, spent the following hour desperately calling the school before learning his daughter was dead. Sabika's coffin was wrapped in the Pakistani national flag when it was returned to Karachi. Thousands of mourners attended her funeral, including the provincial governor. Her host mother in Texas, Jolene Cogburn, said at a memorial service, "I always told her, Sabika, you have a warrior's heart." She wanted to be a businesswoman who wanted to impact the world. She had been 17 years old. She had wanted to join Pakistan's foreign service. Riley Garcia's prophecy. 15-year-old Christian Riley Garcia, who went by his middle name, Riley, was a freshman in the first period art class when the shooting began. When Pagortzis fired through the door and entered the hallway, Riley Garcia did not run. He positioned himself against a door in the art corridor and held it shut with his body, giving students on the other side a chance to escape through a back exit. The shooter fired through the door. The shot killed him. Because he held that door, students who otherwise would have been in Pagortzis' direct path were able to get out. Approximately a week and a half before the shooting, Riley had a conversation with his mother, Shannon Clausen, about his ambition to become an Army Ranger. She recalled him looking at her and saying, "If I have to die fighting for what I believe in or to save someone else, so be it. There's nothing else for me." He was 15. He said that. And then 11 days later, without a moment of hesitation, according to every eyewitness account, he put his body against a door. He was posthumously awarded the Young Hero Award from the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, one of only 2 recipients that year. He didn't have the courage. In his personal journals, seized by investigators from his computer and phone in the search of the family home following the shooting, Pagortsis had written explicitly about his plan for what came after. He intended to die by suicide at the conclusion of the attack. He documented this intention in writing across multiple entries. Governor Greg Abbott stood at a press conference on the afternoon of May 18th and quoted the journals directly, saying not only did he want to commit the shooting, but he wanted to commit suicide after the shooting. Abbott then added, in the governor's own words, he didn't have the courage to commit suicide. Pagortsis turned himself in to police instead. He is, as of this recording, still alive. The 10 people he killed are not spared to tell his story. When Pagortsis was taken into custody and questioned, he told investigators something that appears in the official probable cause affidavit and has never been adequately examined in public conversation about this case. He explained why certain students in that building survived. He stated in substance that he did not shoot the people he liked, he spared them deliberately because he wanted them to be alive afterward to tell his story. He had decided in advance who would live and who would die based on his personal feelings about them. He curated the survivor pool. He wanted witnesses. This is not the act of someone who was in an uncontrolled rage. This is premeditated targeting dressed up as indiscriminate violence. The journal. The entries recovered from Pagortsis's personal journals and devices paint a picture of a mind that had been constructing its grievances for a long time and had decided at some point that those grievances required a public response. He referred to his classmates in the journals as vermin. He wrote that he had given them, in his phrasing, so long to redeem yourselves. He wrote, "You people are playing with fire and are about to get burned." In one entry, he posed a direct rhetorical challenge. "You want a motive?" And did not finish the sentence with any answer, as if the question itself was meant to be the statement. These entries were distributed across his computer, his phone, and handwritten material. He maintained them carefully. He documented his thoughts in multiple formats. He researched prior mass shootings specifically to extract tactical information he could incorporate into his own planning. This was a person who was preparing, methodically, for a long time. 17 firearms. The weapons Pagortsis used on May 18th belonged to his father, Antonios Pagortsis. When investigators examined the family home after the shooting, they found that Antonios owned 17 firearms in total, kept in a gun cabinet and safe. During his testimony in the civil trial against the family 6 years later, Antonios Pagortsis stated under oath that he believed his wife was the only other person in the household who knew where the keys to the safe were hidden. He did not realize his son had found them. He said he felt no personal responsibility for what Dimitrios did. The jury in the civil trial ultimately agreed with that position, at least in terms of legal financial liability. The gun safe's keys, wherever Dimitrios found them, unlocked both the Remington shotgun and the .38 revolver that killed 10 people. $1,722. The pipe bombs, the pressure cooker, and the Molotov cocktails found near the school did not come from nowhere. In the weeks before the shooting, Dimitrios Pagortsis spent $1,722 of his own money, a 17-year-old with no stated employment, purchasing materials online, delivered directly to the family home. His parents' attorneys in the civil trial pointed to those deliveries as evidence that his parents were not paying sufficient attention to what was arriving at their front door. The mother, Rose Marie Kosmatatis, testified that she had not known about the purchases and said her son was clearly delusional in his writings. That word, delusional, would become legally significant later. The symbols explained. The detail about Pagortsis explaining his own coat symbology on Facebook is one that tends to get reported only as a curiosity. But when you look at it analytically, it tells you something specific about his psychology. He was not wearing the Iron Cross because it looked cool. He was not wearing the hammer and sickle as an edgy aesthetic choice. He had assigned each symbol a precise personal meaning, bravery, rebellion, kamikaze tactics, and then displayed that meaning publicly for anyone who cared to look. He was performing an identity. He wanted to be seen as someone with a coherent worldview. The trench coat was not incidental. It was a statement about who he believed himself to be, broadcast to his school every single morning for months. The Marine Corps fantasy. In the bio section of his Facebook page, Pogortsis had written that he planned to join the United States Marine Corps, starting in 2019. The Marines, upon inquiry after the shooting, reported that they had no record of Pogortsis visiting a recruiting station, filling out any paperwork, or making any contact with the branch in any capacity. He had written it anyway. The identity he was constructing for himself, the warrior, the tactician, the person with a code, had an institutional dimension he had invented wholesale. He wanted to be the kind of person the Marines would want. He had done nothing to actually become one. Schizoaffective disorder. Within approximately a year of the attack, Pogortsis was evaluated by a court-appointed psychiatrist and diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a condition characterized by the simultaneous presence of psychotic symptoms such as delusions and hallucinations alongside severe mood disorder features. The clinical picture that emerged from that evaluation described profound social withdrawal. He had begun isolating in his bedroom for days at a time, expressing desires to become like the mass shooters he had researched. His defense attorney, Nicholas Pohl, described their interactions in the years following the arrest this way. He can seem to be having a sort of normal conversation, and then the conversation just goes off the rails into bizarre hallucination-paced fantasy. This diagnosis became the legal cornerstone of every subsequent competency proceeding. Incompetent to stand trial. In November 2019, 18 months after the shooting, Dimitrios Pogortsis was formally declared incompetent to stand trial. He was transferred to North Texas State Hospital for competency restoration treatment. That was over 5 years ago. As of January 2025, he had been in that hospital for 1,879 days. For context, in 2024, the average patient sent to North Texas State Hospital for competency restoration was restored and returned to court within 175 days. Pogortsis is one of 15 patients at the facility who have been there for longer than 5 years. He has been found incompetent at every subsequent evaluation. He cannot, in the legal determination of court-appointed physicians, rationally understand the proceedings against him or assist in his own defense. The 10 families who buried their people in May of 2018 have been waiting for a criminal trial for 8 years. There has not been one. There may never be one. The civil trial. Because the criminal case remained perpetually suspended, the victims' families pursued a parallel legal avenue. The civil lawsuit they brought named Pogortsis himself, and also his parents, Antonios Pogortsis and Rose Marie Kosmatatis, arguing that they had failed to address their son's evident mental deterioration and had not done enough to prevent him from accessing the firearms used in the attack. The 3-week trial concluded in August 2024. After 9 hours of deliberations, the jury cleared the parents of financial responsibility. They found only Dimitrios Pogortsis liable, awarding the families more than $200 million in total damages for pain and mental anguish. Pogortsis, confined to a psychiatric hospital, legally incompetent, and holding no meaningful assets, will almost certainly never pay a dollar of it. For the families, the $200 million judgment against him is the legal system's clearest acknowledgement that he was responsible for what happened. A number attached to what the record already knew. No red flags. Governor Greg Abbott's statement on the afternoon of May 18th that there were no red flags to indicate Pogortsis was headed for trouble was technically defensible on the narrow grounds of criminal history. He had none. But the public record contains a Facebook post from 18 days before the shooting showing a Born to Kill custom t-shirt, a photograph of a symbol-covered trench coat with a handwritten caption explaining each symbol's meaning. A daily pattern of wearing that coat to school that his peers had been commenting on for months. Journal entries calling his classmates vermin and warning that they were playing with fire. $1,722 in unexplained online purchases arriving at the family home, and a plan for homemade explosives that investigators found in his vehicle. Whether that constitutes no red flags is a question every person watching this can answer for themselves. J. Watt. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, Houston Texans defensive end J.J. Watt posted on social media describing the event as absolutely horrific. He then contacted Santa Fe High School directly and told officials that he would personally cover the funeral expenses for all 10 victims. He paid for every service. 10 funerals, paid in full by a professional football player who had no personal connection to any of the families. It is one of those human details that sits at the edge of the record without demanding any analytical frame. It happened. It was real, and it is worth knowing. Sabika's father. In the days after the shooting, Abdul Aziz Sheikh, Sabika's father, who had been waiting at home in Karachi for his daughter to come home in 3 weeks, gave a public statement. He said he hoped that Sabika's death would lead to stricter gun control measures in the United States. He was a man from a country with its own profound history of political violence, speaking from the most personal place a human being can speak from, asking the country where his daughter had been placed as a cultural ambassador to reckon with its relationship to firearms. Whether anyone in a position to act on that was listening is documented separately in the legislative record of what Texas did and did not pass in the months that followed. 8 years after May 18th, 2018, Dimitrios Pagortzis remains in a psychiatric facility in North Texas. He has not stood trial. The families of the 10 people he killed are still waiting. The 10 trees planted as memorials outside Santa Fe High School are 8 years older than they were when they were put in the ground. Sabika Sheikh's dream of joining the Pakistani Foreign Service ended in an art classroom in Texas 3 weeks before she was supposed to go home. Riley Garcia's door is still there. The names on the memorial are still the same. The trial has still not happened. And Pagortzis is 24 years old, the same age his victims will never be. This is the end of the iceberg, and I genuinely appreciate you watching this far. I'll be covering more of these cases very soon. Subscribe if you want to be here for those.